Hello beer and brew fans, and welcome to Something About Beer. And today we are in the brewery, and that can only mean one thing, of course. We are brewing a beer. It's brew day. Yeah, I love brew day. So what we're doing today is a New England IPA. I ran out of my New England about a week ago. I hadn't planned properly, so it means that now I'm going to be without an IPA on tap for another couple of weeks. But anyway, it is what it is. I've actually started a little later today than planned due to a very enthusiastic beer tasting session last night, so I decided to have a little bit of time to relax this morning before cracking on. But anyway, I'll go through some of the stages with you as well, and hope you enjoy this beer journey with me today.
And here is the recipe. We're going for a 6.2% beer, 37 IBUs, around 8 EBC. And the fermentables, we have 5.8 kilos of grain in total. That's made up of 3 kilos of Whirlpools, 800 grams each of dextrin malt and Maris Otter. Then we have 600 grams each of naked oat malt and pale wheat malt. This is my grain bill that I've really settled on for all of my New England IPAs, actually. I just find that this malt bill gives a nice balanced malty background to the beer, also helps with the mouthfeel, etc. So yeah, this is kind of more or less what I've settled on. As for the hops, we're kicking off with a whole cone of Olicana, 30 grams in the mash, and really I do that for a bit of insurance. I've read a lot about mash hopping supporting the extraction of metals, particularly manganese, from the grains and particularly oats, because that also, manganese is the enemy of New England IPA, being so sensitive to oxidation. That really doesn't help. So it allows for the extraction of some of those metals in the mash. So a bit of insurance there. From a hop stand perspective, 20 minutes at 80 degrees, and we're looking at 50 grams each of Cascade, Ella and Pacific Sunrise, and then 30 grams of Chinook. And then we're going to have a 2-day dry hop with 50 grams each again of Cascade, Ella, Pacific Sunrise, and 30 grams of Chinook. And then finally we're fermenting with the Verdant IPA, and again I've settled on that more or less for all of my New Englands. Again, it gives some nice fruitiness there.
My strike water is warming up, as you can see, heating up nicely. There's my brewing salts all ready to go in. I've already acidified the water. So next step is to get the salts in, and then I'll start to look at crushing the grain. So here is my malt store, bulk malt there, Whirlpools uncrushed, same with Maris Otter. I have some other malts there that are also uncrushed, some crushed as well. So on to crushing the grain. I have a Grainfather mill. Very lucky boy I am. My wife bought me one for my birthday a little while back. I've used it about I guess 5 or 6 times already and found it to be pretty good. You need a little adjusting here and there for different grain types, but generally I find that 5 on the mill gap and a speed of about 4 is pretty good for most grains. You may have to adjust here and there for maybe slightly harder grains like wheat and oats, etc. But I've found that it's pretty good. The hopper there holds about 1 kilo roughly. I know some people have actually made their own hoppers, which you can get more in. That does my needs fine, so I've not had any cause to kind of think about changing that.
It's a pretty fast mill. It gets through about 1 kilo of grain in roughly 30 seconds.
So here we are, 5.8 kilos of malt, pretty all well cracked. Yeah, the the mill does a good job. My efficiency on this rig and using this mill is actually pretty good. So I don't have any issues with the settings I've got so far. So yeah, hopefully this one will be the same. Hope I haven't jinxed it now.
We're ready to mash in. Okay. As you can see, I'm using a bag, and part of the reason I'm using a bag is that previously I've had some of the grain particles go through the metal meshes and actually stick on the heat sensor. Not actually in this rig that I have now, but on previous rigs I've had that. And the problem with that is then when you have to reset the sensor, that's actually underneath the kettle itself, and of course it's a little dangerous to try and lift or move a kettle full of grain and hot water to try and reset it. So that was a bit of a pain. So I thought, well, I'll just use a bag to stop that. When I got this rig, I used it for a couple of times without the bag, and everything seemed okay. But I did get a couple of stuck sparges in the pump with the recirc, etc. And again, I just thought, well, why not just use a bag just to stop that? It's not for everybody. Some people will claim that the efficiency drops or there's challenges. I've never found that, and even if my efficiency dropped a little bit, I'd rather have that than a stuck sparge or issues with the sensor being compromised and it cutting out, etc.
Yeah, so here we are. Target is 67. We're at 66.4, so pretty good. We're recirculating at the moment. So here's the olicana going in to the mash, whole cone. Smells pretty amazing, actually. Oh yeah, really quite citrusy. Yeah, very nice. So this needs to go in and then get mixed in. Yeah, olicana in there. This is smelling amazing now, with all those nice hops in there. Nice malt, lovely. All right, let's let that rest. Then I'll come back and take a reading for the pH. So mash has been about 15 minutes. I've taken a sample. I am cooling it down in a bit of ice water to get it down to temperature where I can check the pH. My pH meter does have an automatic temperature calculation on it to adjust it, but I find that putting your probe into cooler wort makes the probe last a lot longer, and they're pretty expensive. So yeah, that's the process I use. The pH, we're actually a little high. I think the target was about 5.4, so we're at 5.71. So I've adjusted the mash a little bit with a little bit more lactic acid. See how that brings it down. I'm not too worried. It's not way out, so should be okay. So we managed to get the pH down to about 5.62. That's fine. I'm not going to mess around with it anymore.
So a quick update on the mash pH. I thought I'd just check the calibration of the machine, even though I'd done it just maybe 4 weeks ago, and I know they state that you should probably do it after or before each brew. But I've had it a number of years and I've never really had an issue with it calibrating it after every couple of 2 or 3 brews. But yeah, it was slightly out. It was 0.21 points out. So now recalculating the actual pH, we come to 5.41. So we're pretty much in the range that we expected. I don't think that's a big deal. But yeah, I've learned something. I will definitely calibrate before each brew day from now on. So you know what they say, every brew day is a school day. Time for sparging. Pretty standard sparging method I use, pouring the hot water over the grain. First I like just to rinse the side of the bag just to make sure I'm getting all the sugars off the bag there if there's any stuck to it, and then putting the rest over the grain, letting that rinse through into the boil kettle. And of course at the same time increasing the temperature to achieve a nice boil.
We're pretty close to boil now. There's around 25 litres in there, which is pretty spot on to where we need to be. I've also just taken a pre-boil gravity reading, and we're at about 13.5 Plato, which is about 1055, and the target was 1057. So again, I'm pretty happy with the numbers so far. So I'm going to go with a 30-minute boil today. Don't think I need much more than that. That should get me down to the volume that I need. So here we are, nice rolling boil, looking pretty good. Very happy with that at the moment. Yeah, that's going well. Another tip for me, at least, I brew indoors in my brewery, and sometimes the steam can get pretty much in here. I keep all doors open, and I also put a fan on to try and disperse the steam around the place, and hopefully through and out of the back door there. But that's one thing I've also found. If I don't do that, I get a lot of condensation up on my stainless here, which can be a bit of a pain. So yeah, just another tip. So while the boil's doing, I'm cleaning a keg for the beer to go in. You probably can't see in there, but it's bubbling nicely away. I use this sodium percarbonate. This actually works really well for me. It's never let me down at all. I can leave that in there, and it just soaks away anything that's left in there, which is good. I will put the cap on in a second, the lid, and then turn it upside down, and then also make sure I put a little bit of pressure in there just to make sure the dip tube is all done as well. So yeah, that's my keg. That's how I clean my kegs. I give it a rinse out first, and then I give it a brush. But then I finish off with this. This is not a sanitizer, so it does need sanitizing afterwards as well, which, you know, I usually use Starsen or something similar. As the liquid's hot, I put the lid on and gave it a shake, and it built up. It naturally builds up some pressure in there, and then I pressed the poppet in the top of the dip tube, which obviously brought some cleaner up into the dip tube, and then basically turned it upside down, so it's now soaking along the top there. So I shall leave that now for, well, as long as I need to, probably about 20 minutes or so. That's plenty, and then she'll be nice and clean. The other thing to note is that with sodium percarbonate, you do have to rinse with hot water to get all of that stuff out. Okay, so it's hop weighing out time, 50 grams of each, Ella, Pacific Sunrise, Cascade and Chinook. So we start with Ella. This is actually an Australian hop. Not had much experience with this one actually, so interesting to see what this is like. It's 16.5% alpha, so quite heavy up there on the alpha acids. Tropical and grapefruit apparently, which is definitely what I'm looking for. Wow, I can smell it from here. Oh wow, yeah. Oh, they smell amazing. Yeah, very tropical and very grapefruity. So yeah, very nice indeed. So this, of course, is for the hop stand, 20-minute hop stand. We're getting close to that time. So there we go. So that's the Ella. I'm going to go next with the Pacific Sunrise. This one is a New Zealand hop, actually. This also has citrus and also some sweet fruit, apparently berries, etc. So that one also sounds nice. Hopefully it'll go nice with the others I've got. I'm trying to get into these new bags from Malt Miller. They are good. They're nitrogen flushed, and then there's also a resealer in there, so you can reseal them. They're very good actually. Yeah, so here we go. Pacific Sunrise, 50 grams. Oh, okay, yeah. That there's quite a lot of berry in there. Yeah, not as much citrus or tropical notes, but there's a nice berry in there. That is really interesting. I wonder how that will come through in the beer. So next we will do the Chinook. I've already got some open here, so I'm going to throw this in 50 grams. Oh yeah. Chinook is a US hop, I'm sure you're aware. It's piney and grapefruity. This one smells a little earthy as well, actually. So I think these will complement each other pretty well. So there we go. And then of course finally we have Cascade. So which end? Here it is, yeah. So Cascade, which of course again is a US, or this one in particular is a US variety. It's not the British or any other areas, it's US. Yeah, that's proper grapefruit, proper old school IPA there. Really smells good. 50 grams of that. So in total we've got 200 grams of hops going into the Whirlpool for about 20 minutes, and all in all that should give us around about 9 grams per litre for the Whirlpool, and the same for the dry hop.
My chiller caught me by surprise a little bit, actually. It chilled it from 100 degrees down to 73 really quickly. So yeah, I was actually aiming for 80, but we'll go in with the hops anyway, the 180 grams of hops. So we should be okay with that, I think. We're going to stand that now for around about 20 minutes. I'm giving the hops a nice stir here through the hop spider. Usually I'd be recirculating through the hop spider to disperse the hoppy goodness there into the wort, but my pump has stopped working, so I've had to do it manually. But this should be okay. You can see it all dripping in there. So if I do this 2 or 3 times throughout the 20 minutes, I'm pretty sure I'm going to extract a lot of the nice, lovely hoppy goodness that we're looking for.
A quick word about the chiller that I have. It's actually a double chiller. I got one stainless steel chiller with this Brewzilla, and then I also got a stainless steel chiller with my Klarstein. So what I decided to do, and I'm using that now as a HLT, which works pretty well actually. So what I decided to do is basically combine the two. And basically strap them together and then create a single line in to both chillers. So I've got double the surface area when chilling, and it's working okay. I've got a couple of little leaks here and there with the attachments, so nothing too bad, but the bucket under there is good. Probably just need new attachments there, or better quality ones, to be honest. And the water goes basically all the way to the pond, so we're not wasting the water. The pond needs filling up, so that's generally what we try and do. We utilize that water for filling up the pond, or we fill up the water butts or something like that. So yeah, this works pretty well, and it gives a quicker chilling time as well.
Just preparing the keg that the beer will go into. It's brimmed with star san, and I will use the CO2 produced from fermentation to push out the star san and replace that with that CO2 for an oxygen-free, clean and sanitised keg.
So here we are into the fermenter, looking pretty nice. Nice yellowy, orangey colour there. Getting a bit of splashing at the back there, but I've sanitized all of that, so even if it drips back in to the fermenter, it should be fine. Usually I wouldn't be putting the wort into the fermenter this way. I'd usually be pumping from the top of my the arm there. But as I said before, the pump is stuck, or there's something wrong with it, so I've had to lift that up there. Not on my own, of course. My wife helped me with that, which is good of her. in she goes, and then we'll pop the fermenter in the fermentation chamber, and then I'll set up the fermentation process, so we have a completely CO2 filled keg at the end of it. So when the beer is completed fermenting, we can push the beer into the keg that's sanitized and completely free of oxygen.
Fermenter is now in the fermentation chamber after pitching the yeast. Here is my setup. We have a silicon tube attached to a gas line through the door, and then it comes out the other side, and we go directly to the keg that is full with Starsan. That's going in the gas in tube, of course. So when the fermentation kicks off, it will then push the Starsan through the liquid dip tube and out through the pipe into my bucket. And at the end of it, what we will have is a completely sanitized and oxygen-free keg, so we can transfer our finished beer to. End of brew day stats review. Mash pH 5.41 after that little glitch with the calibration there. Should have been 5.32, so happy with that. Boil volume 25 litres, should have been 25.17, again happy with that. Pre-boil gravity at 1055 versus 1057, yeah, okay with that as well. Post-boil kettle volume 23 versus 22.92. Pretty spot on. OG is actually 10.62, which is bang on. The only thing that I was short on was the fermenter volume. Ended up at 19.5 litres rather than 21 litres. Yeah, I guess I boiled off a little bit more vigorously than I anticipated during the boil. Something to watch out for next time. But all in all, pretty happy with the numbers. Fermentation kicked off pretty quickly. After about 16 hours after pitching the yeast, we already started to see about 2 litres of Starsan being pushed through, and after about 25 hours it had emptied the entire 20 litres of Starsan out of the keg. So pretty vigorous fermentation, which I'm very, very happy with. So this is the setup that I have for transferring the finished beer into the keg. It's basically oxygen free. The keg, as you saw before, is basically oxygen free in there. Pushed all the oxygen out by filling it with Starsan and then pushing it through with the CO2 produced from fermentation. I have the fermenter there that's had no oxygen ingress at all, apart from me lifting the lid and adding the dry hop. That's the only oxygen that it's been exposed to. And now we have the loop here, so we have the gas going out back up into the top of the fermenter, and that's CO2 of course in there. I've also purged the line with CO2, and then from here, when I open the tap, the beer will flow into the keg, closing the loop. So it's pushing the CO2 that's in the keg out onto the top of the beer. So that's basically how I transfer my beer relatively oxygen free. The way I check to make sure that the liquid is indeed transferring is you see the condensation mark at the bottom of the keg. That's obviously where the cold beer is going into a less cold keg, causing that condensation. So I keep an eye on that, and you know, when it gets up to the top and it doesn't move anymore, then I know that the transfer is done. And that's really how I check that the beer is actually moving. Here we are. The finished keg of beer is now being carbonated. This is set to around 30 psi, and I'll leave that in here in my kegerator, which is set to about 4 or 5 degrees, something like that. I'll leave it in there for about 20 to 24 hours. and then we can bleed off the excess pressure in the keg, then set it to serving pressure, put it in my kegerator, and then leave it to settle for a day or two, and then we should be good to go.
And here is the finished beer. Please check out my short beer review video where I dig into it, providing feedback on taste, aroma, appearance, and of course, overall impression. Thanks for joining, and if you like what we do, please help us out by subscribing, and don't forget to ring the bell so that you don't miss any of the new content that we produce.